Do you suffer from painful, heavy periods, PMS, mood swings, or migraines? Are you tired of being told they are just normal parts of life? Or are you afraid your child's going to suffer these symptoms too? At Vividis, the full of life company, we take the pain, misery, and confusion out of those menstrual cycles and replace them with tools of empowerment and time management so you can be Vividis. Visit embracingflowpodcast.com for more information on transforming your cycles from ow to wow. Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice.
Ever felt frustrated being told PMS, heavy bleeding, and cramping are just normal parts of life? You're not alone. I loathed my monthly cycle for decades. That all changed when I earned 3 health coaching certifications discovering something incredible. Your period is vital. It is an outward sign of your inner health, and it holds the key to unlocking your full potential. I've been there battling heavy, painful periods, and I turn them into cycles with minimal PMS and cramping. Today, I'm on a mission to share that information with you. Pour a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and grab your headphones as we embark on a candid and empowering journey of self-discovery. Together, we'll demystify menstrual cycles, explore cyclical living, delve into natural birth control, and guide parents through those crucial period talks with tweens and teens. It's time to break the taboo around menstruation and embrace the wisdom it holds. I'm your host, Heather Almendinger, and this is the Embracing Flow podcast.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Embracing Flow. I'd like to introduce our guest today, an expert at Embracing Flow, Kerry Jenkins. Welcome, Kerry. Thank you so much for joining us today on Embracing Flow. How are you?
Thank you so much, Heather. It's such my pleasure to be here. Doing well from, recovering from a long holiday weekend, trying to get back into the swing of things.
Understand that sentiment. Guess this is why I have Kerry on today. Kerry is a certified physician's assistant with Whisper Health Functional Medicine. She has 24 years of experience practicing dermatology and saw a need to support women with PCOS. She created the Get Your Sass Back program, a 12-week online group program to help you understand what is really going on with PCOS and how to address those nagging symptoms. I love that you are addressing the skin and the PCOS. But before we dive into how you got to what you're doing and what you see, would you share with us approximately what age and one of your first cycles?
So I find this such an interesting question because I don't have a fancy story. I wish I did. I wish I had some exciting story. I have a better story for my youngest daughter, but my personal story is really kind of blasé, to be very honest. I was about to turn 13, and I remember, having the conversation with my mom and being prepared for when it came, as much as any person can be. And then I got it. And it was really just non-eventful. It was like, oh, okay, here we go type of thing. And that's really the only memory and recollection that I have. A funny story, if I can share my youngest daughter's, this is funny. I spoke to my girls quite a bit about getting their cycle and what it would look like and how it's going to happen and, the whole 9 yards. And my youngest has a pretty quirky sense of humor. And she was in the 4th grade. And when she was in 4th grade, I want to say she had a cell phone, which now saying that out loud sounds a little crazy, but she had a phone and she messaged me from the bathroom and said, well, game on. It looks like a massacre up in here. I don't even know what else to say to you, but it looks like a massacre just happened. And I think I'm going to need you to come bring me some clothes. And I was like, okay. So we brought her some clothes, but it was just very funny, the words that she chose to use and that she was texting me from the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I've heard of that on April Fools when it doesn't actually happen, but to actually have her do that and have that sense of, I love that. I love that she
Yeah.
knew about it. I love that she had the sense of humor
She did.
to do that. I'm sure that it had you rolling.
I almost peed my pants. I was laughing. I mean, I wasn't laughing at her. I was just
No.
laughing. Here is this very young human that is taking this really dramatic situation
Mhm.
in a young girl's life, right? It can be traumatic, it can be dramatic, and it can be all these things. And she just applied her quirky sense of humor and it just tickled me pink. I was like, okay, it's fine. She totally knew what to expect. And she's like, you need to come on up and bring me some laundry because this is ridiculous.
Like I said, oh my goodness, that is priceless. Something that I hopefully she will pass on to her children.
Yep.
Um, but definitely a hard to forget story.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into being a certified physician's assistant that worked in dermatology and specializes more in the PCOS world?
It's really an interesting story. So I became a PA and I wanted to, anyone that goes into the medicine with a heart of, I want to heal people. And that was no different for me. I went into PA school knowing that I wanted to help in some way on a very deep level. And I went to a conventional PA program, graduated, got started in dermatology from my very first job was in a specialty of dermatology. And I'm very grateful to say that I practiced in dermatology for a quarter of a century. So I've had my fair share of experience. And what I didn't realize when I matriculated through that program, got my license and started in a practice is that the conventional world of medicine, this is very controversial. So I hope that I don't offend you or anybody else listening, any of your listeners. But very quickly realized that the conventional medical system really isn't about healing people.
I've
And
found
that's a
that as well.
really big pill to swallow for people. Some people, the hair on their back of their neck may be raised and they may be like, what? What's wrong with this girl? What is she talking about? What planet is she from? But it's really the truth. And it took me some time to realize that. And it took a health journey of a family member for me to see that there is more to medicine than just conventional medicine, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So, to come back to your question, how did I link this? I have been in practice for many, many years. And I had the very fortunate opportunity in my dermatology practice. I was able to practice general medical dermatology, where I was doing skin exams to identify skin cancers. I'm working with people with chronic skin conditions like eczema, acne, rosacea, psoriasis, seborrheic dermatitis. And I also had the opportunity to work in our aesthetics office, which did more um, cosmetic type of procedures. So I was in the general conventional medical world and in the cosmetic world. And after a period of, I'm going to be generous and say 12 to 15 years, I really started noticing a lot of young women that were complaining of pretty substantial acne, primarily located along their chin, jawline, and neck area. And those women that had that type of hormonal acne were also having appointments with me in the cosmetic dermatology center for laser hair removal. Now, why is that important?
Mm.
Because women with PCOS, those are two of the primary symptoms that are manifesting on their skin in a dermatological, source that clue somebody in to, hey, listen, there may be something going on with the metabolic system or the female endocrine system. And I started making these very small connections, like my women acne patients were also coming in for laser hair removal. And the more I started thinking about it, I started putting some pieces together and I started asking questions to these young ladies and these adult women. Hey, what do your cycles look like? Do you have regular cycles? How old were you when you started cycling? Do you get a cycle every month? Do you get a cycle every other month? Is it completely wonky and you never know when it's coming or what it's going to look like? What other symptoms are you having? Do you have depression and anxiety? Do you have a little bit of extra weight around your midsection that you're having a difficult time letting go of? Are you dealing with anything else, that could be potentially going on along for the ride with this PCOS. So I started asking questions, and I intentionally didn't want to label somebody like, hey, listen, you may have polycystic ovarian syndrome. I would always kind of just give them an invitation to go back to their medical provider, GYN, primary care, pediatrician, whoever it is they're seeing, and just start asking some questions. Like, could this be something else going on? This acne, this hair growth that I'm getting? I mean, these young ladies, Heather, were presenting with full beards, okay? They're growing hair down their sideburns, along their jaw, their whole neck, across their upper lip. Like, this is serious stuff. And, if anything is going to affect a young woman's self-confidence, it's growing hair on their face. So I just very gently started inviting them to go in and start asking questions and try to get an appropriate workup. And that's kind of how it evolved. That was a long-winded answer, but that's kind of how it evolved.
No, and my mother is a registered nurse. A lot of my family have gotten into traditional medicine. I've seen or conventional medicine. I see the benefits. I know that there are benefits. I also know there are other ways to look at healing the body and changing where things currently are. It's not the only there are other options. So yes, I do agree with you on that, and it is a very controversial topic. But I love how you started connecting those dots and asking those questions because there are a lot of individuals that don't understand there's a connection. So
Yeah.
once you started asking those questions, did any of those clients come back and say, "Hey, I did go to my OBGYN or I did go to my general practitioner and they did diagnose me with PCOS or endometriosis or estrogen dominance or high cortisol or anything that you saw in the skin that then they followed up and they found out that they do have these conditions?"
So, yes and no. There were a very few select women who were blessed enough to have an open-minded practitioner who would work them up for it. But the majority of the ladies would come back to me and say, I tried to have this conversation. I tried to ask for some blood work. I asked for a transvaginal or an abdominal ultrasound. I wanted to know more about PCOS and what type of options I had in case this was something that was going on with me. What can I do about it? And I will tell you that 7 to 8 out of 10 people that came back to me told me my doctor didn't want to discuss it. They didn't want to run labs. The only thing that they told me was that we'll just put you on birth control and then it's a non-issue.
Yep. That's
And
what
if that wasn't fire under my arse to go absolutely ballistic crazy and do something, there was nothing like that. I became infuriated. Like, what do you mean they didn't offer you any blood work? Oh, well, the doctor said that most of the time they run blood work and the labs come back normal. So it's not going to make any difference to run the lab. I'm like, what?
Yep. I've heard that from some of my clients. So, what did you do then? I mean, obviously you are very, very passionate about the fact that these young ladies were being, for a better word, gaslit by their doctors that they are exhibiting signs of something going on. Their body's saying something's not right here. So I know that that's not the end of your story. I know you're too passionate right now to have said, "Oh, well, I can't do anything about it." So what did you do?
Well, initially, I tried to counsel them tiny little bits at a time with the time that was allotted to me in a conventional dermatology visit. I would counsel them a little bit at a time each time they'd come in. And I would just really intentionally plant a seed to say, this may be what's going on. And if this is what's going on, that syndrome doesn't define you. And there are so many things that can be done other than just taking a birth control pill. So that was number one. So it really was just in the very, very beginning, I didn't have much to offer, in all honesty, other than bite-sized bits of education and counseling, because that's all that I had in my toolbox at that time. And this kind of continued to go on and on and on. And then I had my youngest daughter had a health issue, not a crisis, a little hiccup on the radar, and I was absolutely positively blessed to find integrative and functional medicine, naturopathic, holistic, integrative, functional, however you want to call it. And this is one of those things where it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? At the very end of the movie, they pull back the green curtain and you see Oz and what he's doing, right? And once you see behind that curtain, there's no way for you to be able to go back and practice the way that you were, initially trained. Like I was conventionally trained to manage and treat chronic dermatological illnesses. And I was trained to do it in a box. This is how you do it. Integrative, functional medicine, holistic medicine, naturopathic medicine. They teach you how to think outside the box, and they give you so many more tools to offer patients on how to treat anything from chronic fatigue syndrome to, you name the disease, we have more tools and resources to support you in treating it. So because my youngest daughter had a little bit of a hiccup in her health, it allowed this whole new world to open up to me. And I am forever grateful for that experience that my daughter brought to me, because it changed my life. And I rose and took the challenge of dedicating substantial financial resources, time resources, studying resources. I dedicated a tremendous amount of time to learning how to practice this type of medicine. I opened my own practice, and ultimately it led to me creating this program. So now I can really educate and empower and inspire young ladies on how to communicate and advocate for their best health with anybody, with their primary care, their pediatrician, their GYN, whoever it is they're seeing. But it was a journey for me to get there. But that's part of my passion, and why I'm out to do what I want to do, is just to educate.
And I love it. That's why I got it. I have the heart to serve. I have the heart to heal. I chose not to go the conventional route. I chose to go through certified health coaching and found my way into the menstrual space and absolutely love it. What are some of the things that I don't want to go too deep, because I don't want to, I want to keep your program that you've come up with, your 12 week Get Your Sass Back. I love the title of that. What are some of the things that you shared a little bit of how they come into your practice? What are some of the things that if they're not sure that they could use your practice or your program, what are some things that may be manifesting in their skin that would suggest you can help them? And would you share just some tidbits on what may slightly improve it, so that way they know they're going in the right direction? They know, you know what, I need more help. Maybe Kerry can help me more.
Yeah, absolutely. So polycystic ovarian syndrome is a catch-all phrase. It is not a diagnosis. It's a catch-all phrase for a list of symptoms that somebody very eloquently categorized and put in this box. And it looks something like this, and it can vary from person to person. It doesn't look the same on every individual body, but it looks something like this. It's a young woman who has established their menses. And as you know, it takes a decent amount of time for the ovaries to really, the pituitary and the ovaries to really start communicating to release an egg and ovulate every single month. That takes time to establish. So as a female begins menstruating, it takes, anywhere from 6 to 18 months for their body to kick into gear and to get all cylinders firing all at once and have the actual process of having a cycle happen every single month. So PCOS is historically categorized as wonky periods. Like some women with PCOS may have a period or a cycle every month. Some women with PCOS may have a cycle every 45 days. Some women, it may be 60 days. Some women, it may be once every 6 months. Some women, it may be once a year. Okay. So it looks different. But essentially, the definition is not ovulating and having a cycle every 28 to 30 days. They also may experience many other symptoms like hirsutism, which is the fancy term for hair growth on a female where it does not belong. So these women will have facial hair. They will grow hair on their chest. Around their areolas or their nipples will have thick, coarse, dark hair. Around their belly button, they will have thick, coarse, dark hair. They will have thick, coarse, dark hair starting to migrate on their thighs, like not just in their pubic region, but it goes down their thighs. Now, these young women are absolutely horrified by, oh my God, what do I do with this hair on my face? Now they're in the world of waxing or shaving or using a depilatory cream or laser, or what am I supposed to do? Because they've got to keep up with this hair growth, right? So the hair growth is a symptom. Inflammatory and cystic acne is a symptom, right? These women are having these painful, inflamed lesions on their face. They can break out on acne with acne on their chest, their shoulders, their back. They can have more of we use the word muffin top, but a little bit more of a pooch or an extra little bit of weight carried around their midsection. Having all of these symptoms now leads to self-esteem and self-confidence goes to the toilet. Like, how can a young girl, it's so hard to be a young girl in general. And now you add acne and hair growth and irregular, unpredictable cycles and moodiness. Some of these women are losing the hair on their head, right? They're losing their scalp hair. They're growing hair where it doesn't belong. Like, this is incredibly distressful. This is trauma for a young girl, right? So they may be experiencing one or multiple of these symptoms. And they may go into their pediatrician or their primary care and say, listen, I'm anxious. I'm feeling depression. My self-esteem is in the tank. I don't want to go out. I'm socially isolating. I'm breaking out in acne. And the doctor's like, well, maybe you need an antidepressant and here's a oral antibiotic for your acne. Like, this is the opportunity to hear all the complaints and understand that this is one body system that is crying out for help. And the oral antibiotic and the antidepressant are the last thing that these women need.
I agree. Their body's screaming. They need to find that course because they're in where they're at. They're depressed and they're sheltering themselves because of the fact that they have this other stuff going on.
Yep.
And it's, yeah. So how can these women regain control and break free of this very stressful, very uncomfortable challenge and step foot into their body and be the beautiful women that they are?
Yeah. Well, this is where finding a coach, a practitioner, a physician, an NP, a PA, whatever, that has additional training, functional training, integrative training, holistic training, naturopathic training. These types of people have been trained how to address the body as a whole, because it's not just the ovaries. The ovaries are just the recipient of the chaos that's happening. It's not the ovaries' fault. Like, we cannot be blaming the ovaries, all right? Lay off the ovaries. The ovaries are just responding to the chemical messengers that are going throughout the body. We call those hormones. So what we need to understand first and foremost is that this is not a female endocrine disorder. It is a metabolic dysfunction, right? It is a glucose and insulin dysregulation. It is a metabolic syndrome process that is causing an effect on the poor little ovaries. The ovaries are just responding to the messages that are being sent to it. So first and foremost, the GYN, if you go to the GYN, they're going to say, here, well, we'll fix the problem. We'll put you on the birth control pill. Hopefully that'll reduce your acne. It may or may not affect the hair on your face. It may make you gain more weight. It may make your moods even more unstable, but God forbid you actually get a GYN that goes over risk versus benefit, of what the pill is going to look like for you. That doesn't even happen anymore, but that's how they're going to go about fixing it, right? They're going to give you a birth control pill and say, this is all we can do. May the force be with you. So what we need to do is we need to educate these women that it's not the ovary's fault. It is a direct response of our endocrine system. Now, what is our endocrine system? It is our hormonal system, but it's not just FSH, LH, estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, and testosterone. It is also insulin, glucagon, fasting blood glucose. And what drives that process? Well, ultimately, it's what's on our fork. We have to come back to basics and understand that our lifestyle is allowing the process to continue. So we need to come back to basics and understand that by revamping our lifestyle, that is how we go about healing this constellation of symptoms that we call PCOS. I'm not sure I answered your question.
I- You're doing fantastic. I love it because it's stuff that I love hearing other people explain, because I know how I explain things. My listeners don't always understand how and hearing it from somebody else, they're hearing a different version, but they're hearing the same information. But yes, it goes back to what our lifestyle, it goes back to what's on our fork. It goes to, are we sleeping? Are we doing adequate exercise? Not too much exercise, because that can lead to a whole other string of issues. And I come across individuals that have been diagnosed with PCOS, and I ask them what kind, what type. And they're like, I didn't know there was more than one. And I was like, well, there's insulin resistance. And I love the ones that are inflammatory, insulin resistant, and being put on a combo pill, because a side effect of the combination pill is racing glucose and blood sugar. So
Right.
you're just exacerbating the condition.
Mhm.
It makes me want to bang my head into the wall.
Mhm.
Um, so yes, you expanded on it. Are there some foods we talked about foods that we can eat, or going back to the basics? Does it have to be organic? Is it all whole food? Is it carnivore? Is it just basically, try and get rid of the ultra high processed foods? Because I know that there are some articles that just came out that, oh, ultra high processed foods are great, they aren't bad for you. And we've been told, yes. I just saw that. I was like, okay, oh boy. Um, as a health coach, I heard to kind of stay on the peripheral of the grocery store.
Yes. That's a beautiful way, a very simple way of getting people to wrap their head around, what do I eat? Because honestly, I hear that question 10 times a day. There's so much information out there. You mentioned so many great eating type of plans, right? How do I know what's right for me? Well, you know, trial and error is how you know what's right for you. But ultimately, rather than being so restrictive, I love that you said shop the perimeter of the store with some caveats, right? I tell my people, if your grandmother didn't know what the food is that you're eating, you do not have any business eating it, because grandma ate a fruit, a vegetable, healthy fats, and grass-fed, grass-finished proteins. That's what grandma ate, okay? So that's what we need to eat. We need to eat adequate fiber to feed our good gut microbes. We need, and adequate fiber ensures regular bowel movements, which ensures beautiful estrogen detoxification, which in somebody with PCOS is of primo importance. So we need to eat adequate fiber, which includes plants, vegetables, and fruits. We need to eat healthy fats, and we need to eat good quality sources of protein. And that's really it. Like, let's just make it simple. It doesn't have to be craziness. Eat plants, have healthy fats, and eat grass-fed, grass-finished animal protein. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Uh, and my grandmother, she was a dessert baker, and desserts in small quantities. And I've learned, I don't know if you've heard of eating foods in order. There's different thought processes that you eat the high fibrous foods, the green leafy vegetables first. You go and eat the fat and the protein. So the avocados, the olive oils, that sort of thing with the proteins. And then you eat the higher carbohydrate foods. If you have pasta, if you have bread, if you have rice, white rice, or even brown rice, quinoa, kind of eat that last, but those good grains, and then move your body for about 10 minutes after each meal. That's kind of eating the foods in order. And if you want to have a small piece of cake after dinner, that's okay. If you want to have a small piece of chocolate, I know in the later half of our cycles, we crave chocolate. That darker chocolate is actually, it's kind of our body saying, hey, you might need some magnesium. And eating that dark chocolate, it's okay for us to have those indulgences without inflaming our body. Now, if you go and eat a whole cake or a whole cheesecake, or there's a really, really good lemon mascarpone pie that I had, but it's 720 calories a slice. I'd share that piece of cake with a few people,
For sure.
but I'd still have that piece of cake after I ate because if I stop myself from eating it, if I say, no, I can't have that, I'm going to crave that even more.
Oh, that just leads into all kinds of, yeah. And we call that in our practice, the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time you are focused on healthy, whole food, nutritious food. And then if you have a taste for that, dark chocolate or whatever it is, like you say, you have a little bit. I mean, right here in my desk, like I got the stash. It's right here. When I need a square, I have a square, and there's no guilt and there's no shame, and it is what it is. And I love that you brought magnesium into it, because well, we could have hours of conversations about how, our food supply is so demineralized
Mhm.
because of our farming practices. But yes, allowing ourselves and not denying is part of it. And just live that 80-20, lifestyle. It's relatively simple.
Yep. It is if once you understand it.
Yeah.
Once you understand it. Again, you have the program. Get your sass back. Getting your sass. Would you explain a little bit on what that course is, what you learned through those 12 weeks? Because that sounds like a really, really neat course.
Yeah, we're on a mission to educate, inspire, and empower young women to fully understand their body, how it works. And if they are in a PCOS type of presentation, we want to start very, very basic and just really educate them about their cycle, because I feel like there's not enough people like you in the world who are doing that. So thank you for being who you are, and thank you for what you do, because your work is so very important. That 30-minute health class that everybody gets in 5th grade isn't even scratching the surface. So it's very important for them to understand what their cycle is. And I even go one step further to get them to understand that a woman's cycle is, I like to call it a 5th vital sign.
Mhm.
It is as important as your oxygen saturation, your blood pressure, your temperature, your heart rate. If you're not cycling optimally, that is a vital sign. That's telling you something is not working optimally. And that's what we want to do, is we want to create optimum health in our women. So we start by educating them about their cycle and what it means. We talk about the very basics of nutrition and how to fuel their bodies appropriately. We talk about the foundations of health, which is exactly what you mentioned 10 minutes ago. Nutrition, sleep, movement, stress management, all of those things. We talk about how to avoid the really toxic things that are in our worlds in today's society that are absolutely normalized. How do we avoid that? Because those chemicals are endocrine disrupting chemicals and they wreak havoc on a female's and male's endocrinologic system. And people just don't understand how important avoiding plastic and phthalates and fragrance and all the crap really, really is. So we talk to them about, environmental things as well. We talk to them about the importance of drinking something as simple as drinking enough water every single day, right? Simple, basic things. How important it is to have a filter on the water that you're drinking every day. Because if you're drinking water out of a tap or out of a plastic water bottle, that is not good. That is absolutely not good. So all of those things, we're just giving them the education so that they understand how their body works. And we're empowering them to make good choices in all of those areas to allow their body to rebalance, because that's all your body wants to do. It wants to achieve what we call homeostasis. But there's so much getting in the way. And we're just bringing to the light what gets in the way and how you can make a better choice to support your physiology. And the other thing that's really important about our program is I want to bring together like-minded individuals who want to heal their bodies from a natural perspective. I want to create a community of women that can celebrate each other's wins and support one another when they fall and just have a safe space for them to exist and go through the process.
That is phenomenal. I love it. I love that you brought in about how our cycles, our periods are a fifth vital sign. I have a quote from my training that like really knocked me for a loop, that how our periods present ourselves within the first 2 years of when your cycles start can be used as a predictor of future health conditions. So you've got these teenagers, these 12, 13, 14-year-old young ladies just getting their period. We mentioned about the whole brain ovary connection and getting that ramped up. And there's stuff going on. There's heavy cycles. That's your body saying something might be off. Putting them on that medication is actually then could cause major issues then later in life. And not that far later in life. It could be 5 years later. It could be 10 years later. And they don't know it until they go to have children.
That is so important. And I'm so glad you brought that up. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is the number one cause of infertility in our country. And if I could stand on the rooftops and shout that, I would, because nobody's talking about that. And we are on the precipice of experiencing a crisis with women that are men and women who struggle with infertility. Like it has already, you see the charts, what was the percentage of infertility in 1990? What was it in 2000? What was it in 2010? What is it in 2020? It just keeps climbing. And polycystic ovarian syndrome is the number one cause of infertility. So when a young woman goes to their medical provider, whoever that may be, and says, I have cramps and a lot of pain and heavy bleeding with my cycle, what's their answer? Slap them on a birth control pill. What does that do? They're on it for 10 years. Now, all of a sudden, they find a partner. They want to start a family. They're taken off the birth control pill. And in their mind, as soon as I stop taking the pill, everything's going to come right back online and function as it should. And if you had PCOS way back then, the problem was not identified. It was not managed. It wasn't treated. And now it's just compounded. And if you think for a second that in 2 months, 3 months, that your body's just going to kick back in and naturally start ovulating and produce a pregnancy and carry a pregnancy to term, you may be sadly mistaken. But there's nobody talking about that.
You know, it's very, very, very few. I know of a few, but it's extremely, extremely rare for individuals to be talking about this. I understand how that can possibly be true because there are some that do ovulate right after menstruation. There are some that do
Right.
ovulate during menstruation.
Right.
That's not across the board.
Right.
Or it's, hey, I'll just have intercourse between days 13 and 16 and I'll get pregnant because that's when you're supposed to ovulate in a 28-day cycle. Not realizing
Maybe.
they could be ovulating on day 12 or day 10 and they're missing their ovulation.
Right.
And that egg doesn't stay survive for 14 days.
Oh,
It's able to accept sperm for 12 to 24 hours. And when the ones who are really, really honestly looking to get good information, I got some good questions. A lot of them were telling me I don't know what I was talking about. And I kept seeing the
such a
same posts
tragedy.
over and over. And I was like, you know what? I had to put that and say, I need to step away because I'm tired of hitting my head against the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, I love that you're like, I want the ones that really want to know their body. Where can individuals find more about you, more about your practice, more about your values with how you work with your clients?
Yeah, so I am licensed in the state of Florida. I am acquiring licensure in Georgia. Hopefully, that'll go in the next few weeks. That'll be done. Um, so I can work with people in the state of Florida right now. Soon it will be Florida and Georgia. And that's through Whisper Health, which is my functional medicine practice. If somebody's interested in learning more about the Get Your Sass Back program, we're on Facebook and Instagram at Whispering Wisdom, the number 2 and the letter U. So it's Whispering Wisdom to you. And that's how they can get on our mailing list to learn more about the Get Your Sass Back program. We're hoping to launch that in maybe the next few months, beginning of January. We do have a freebie, a giveaway. It is a metabolic jumpstart. So anybody who is dealing with, they feel like their metabolism is just slowed down a little bit and they want some information on how to get their metabolism going. We do have a freebie. It's themetabolicjumpstart.com and it's just free information and it will link them back to Whispering Wisdom, which is the Get Your Sass Back program. But that's just a free gift for listeners and how to find us.
Sounds wonderful. For those that don't understand what metabolic health is or metabolic issues, we talked about that a little bit. Would you share so, oh, how to or define metabolic issues? So that way, if I didn't know, I mean, oh, okay, I don't have that, but I have these symptoms. Are there classic symptoms of metabolic issues that show up either through the skin or through the body that might be an indication that they definitely need to look at their metabolic health?
That's a really good question, and it's not going to be a simple answer. So, metabolic health is a combination of your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system, all working together, your vasculature system. A symptom that you may notice as women mature, we as women, as we mature, something that we may notice that will clue us in that we may have a metabolic dysfunction is slow, insidious weight gain. Right. So that may be our first real indication that there may be a metabolic process going on. If you have a sudden onset of hypertension, there may be a metabolic process going on. But when we evaluate people in the functional medicine space and the integrative medicine space, we're always looking at the body as a whole. So we're looking at the thyroid because the thyroid gland is the driver of the metabolic system, right? So we're looking at the thyroid. We're looking at blood sugar and insulin, and if that is regulated and riding the teeter-totter nicely, not some kind of dysregulated curve. Something else that we're looking at are the adrenal glands, cortisol. We want to know how much stress your body is under. And we're not just talking about mental, emotional stress. We're talking about physiologic stress. We're talking about, there's so many different subcategories of stress. So it's not an easy black and white, cut and dry answer, but if somebody is putting on weight and having difficulty taking that off, that may be their first clue that there may be metabolically something that's not right in the system.
Yep. Thank you so much. Before we go, do you have any wise words of wisdom for us to take with us?
The one piece of advice that I would love to instill in your listeners is always know that you have options. And if you're a woman who is resonating with even just a little bit of the message that Heather and I have been dialoguing about the last hour, and you go to your medical provider and you feel like you're not getting the answers that you deserve, or you feel like you're not being heard, your concerns, your complaints are not being received, or if you feel like you're being punted off and not addressed, always know that there's somebody else out there that you can find that will listen, will give you the answers that you need, and will work you up appropriately. Don't stop and feel frustrated and feel like this is all there is. There are other people that have been trained in this capacity that are more than willing to walk the journey with you and do it in a way that's going to honor your entire body. So know that there's people out there that can help. If you feel like you're hitting a wall and you're not getting the answers that you deserve, go find somebody else.
I love that. Thank you. What amazing words of wisdom to take with us and to end on. Thank you so much, Kerry, for taking us on this enlightening journey into how our skin kind of tells us what might be going on inside our body and just laying out some of the symptoms so we know where to go, what to do, because we know something may be definitely going on. And we're, especially if we're tired of being told, oh, just take this medicine and it'll help you when you know that that's not what's going on. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
All the links that were shared can be found in the show notes. Thank you, listeners, for spending your time with us today. If you found a nugget of wisdom or a moment of empowerment, our mission is accomplished. Do you know someone that could use the information or benefit from the information in Embracing Flow? Please share the podcast with them. Until next time, my friends, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Embracing Flow. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, submit a rating and review, and share it with your friends. Visit my website to receive your free PDF on 4 ways to decrease PMS. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous.
Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice.